Well, Mrs. Verna Crute Thomas. She hasn't always been a Thomas, but she's one of these people we say is a Thomas by choice, and has been that for 71 years. She's going to tell us a few things she remembers through the years.
Yeah, you want me to read this? Okay. I was born October the 5th in 1890. My parents are Joseph and Virginia Wilkins Crute. My great-grandmother was born in Ireland. My mother's father and mother came from Virginia to Trigg County. Later moved to Hopkinsville, up to Memphis, Tennessee. They died there and was buried there. I was born on my grandparents. On my grandparents. Okay. Yes, sir. We moved to the Patterson farm near there. We went from there to Mount Pleasant Baptist Church at the bottom of the hill where it is today.
You mean you live down the hill just from the Mount Pleasant Church?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There was a log house down there with a shed room to it.
Uh-huh.
That's where we lived. In Patterson, the bottom of the hill. When I was 7 years old, we moved to 3½ miles of Cadiz on the old Hopkinsville Road, 272, where my father bought. He cleared land to build a house and to make crops. I helped cut wood and work in the crops. I had an older brother to help too.
What kind of work did you do in the crops?
Well, sucker tobacco and top tobacco and handle it, and it would
the worms, and
it would be so tall that I could almost drag it on the dirt and get it dirty some.
You weren't tall enough to handle it without
That's
letting
right,
it be
I
on
was too
the
young.
Okay.
I had an older brother to help too. I had 2 younger brothers and 1 sister. The youngest died in infancy. We lived between 2 school districts, Warrenton School and Bethel School.
How far did you live from those schools?
It's about 3 miles. We had to walk, and I didn't get to go in the wintertime like other people did because it was so muddy and so bad. But my brother, he attended more than I did.
And of course there weren't any improved roads around here, I suppose, at that time.
No, not any. They even almost get started in a wagon at that time. I attended some at both the schools, Warrenton first and Bethel later. My teacher at Warrenton was Reverend Earl Cunningham. He later became my brother-in-law. My teachers at Bethel were Miss Annie Wilson and Miss Daisy Wilson, whom I went to school with and later to her. I attended Old Grove Baptist Church nearby, joined at the age of 14, where I am still a member, and was baptized in the Saligar Spring, and we went up to an old house and changed our clothes. It was one cold morning.
You were baptized near Saligar Spring?
We were baptized in a hole near Saligar Spring. It was real cold that morning. And we went nearby and changed our clothes and went to Mrs. Henry Vincent's for lunch.
I believe it was the custom in those days to baptize those who joined the church the next day after baptized. I noticed in some churches now we linger a little while before we get to that baptismal service, but I believe then they didn't wait.
That's right. My oldest brother went to Pennsylvania to make his home. My younger brother was in service getting ready to go overseas when the war ended in 1918. Now, at the age of 88, I am the only survivor of my family. Thinking about the war, I used to hear the older people tell about the Civil War, when the war ended and they were going home. Anything they needed, they would take it from people, would get good horses and ride them until they would give out, then leave them and get someone else's and horses and go further until they got home. Some would hide their good ones in sinkholes. Heard of a lady hiding her ring under a setting hen's nest. Another put their money in an old bonnet and threw it in the corner of the house on the floor.
I wonder if anybody thought to look under the setting hen for anything valuable.
They must not, because they saved them when they did that.
That was good thinking, wasn't it?
It really was. And also I used to hear them tell about the night riders. They used to go around and burn people's barns if they didn't join the association that they had. And I remember that people would take their guns out and lay watch at night for these people to keep them from getting their barns burned. And of course some did have their barns to burn. And I remember someone sending my daddy word that they was going to burn his barn sometime in the near future, and he sent word back to him, told him to wait till a certain time the timber would burn better, to get more seasoned.
He was courageous.
And time really changes things, doesn't it? You don't hear of anything like that this day and time. At the age of 17, I married Johnny Thomas, the son of Francis M. and Forrest E. Rogers Thomas. This was October 30th, 1907. We were married at my aunt's, my daddy's sister, Verna Crute.
Oh, tell us about that wedding.
Well, my cousin, he really was all thrilled about that wedding, and he fixed an arch in their living room, in their parlor, they called it those days. He fixed an arch all up there and for us to march into and then have the ceremony. And Brother Gabby, the Cadiz Baptist preacher, married us. And I remember my husband's brother went and got him and brought him up there. And then we went that night after I left there in a buggy and went quite a distance to his people, and they had a wonderful supper, of course, fixed for the bride and groom that night.
That was customary. I wonder how that arch was decorated in the home where the wedding was.
With greenery, probably some cedars to make it green, and all decorated that way.
Probably that was wound all around the
Yes.
arch. That would have been pretty.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
You remember about your wedding dress?
I had on a blue taffeta dress with a little gold and blue buttons, lots of them on that dress, and it was long and full and tight sleeves. And
You don't know who made it, I guess.
Miss Sue Percy of Cadiz, the seamstress, made my dress. Of course, it was beautifully made. We went then to live with my husband's people, and there were 10 in family. I made 11. After living there a year, we moved near Dawson Creek on another farm of my husband's father's place. We, of course, enjoyed the going to church down there and with the people, and also I remember that we had to go down in the field to a well to draw water. And I remember one day I went down there to draw water and I dropped the bucket in the well. So they had to take a briar hook and reach down in there and fish that bucket out.
Well, I wonder how deep that well was. I guess it's
I don't
pretty
know,
deep.
it was real deep because it was real good water, and I know it must have been real deep.
Yeah. I guess that was a little distance from the house to carry the water.
That's right, it was. It was down in a field, quite a little distance from the house. We then came back after leaving there a year in a quarter of a mile near my husband's home place where I still live. Now, lots of changes have been made since then. We had 2 daughters, and the oldest still at home, and the younger one married and lives about 10 miles from me. They had children there their oldest son and 2 daughters. The oldest, a son and 2 daughters. The son had 1 daughter and 1 son. The oldest daughter had 1 son. So I now have 3 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. The youngest daughter still at home. My husband passed away in March 1972. I still live at the same place with my oldest daughter. Oh, I forgot. I meant to tell you about the Indians that used to travel through the country, and they would camp near water, which I remember one time they would camp near a pond near our place, and in the days that they were there, they would go to people's homes and borrow things, and they came to our house to borrow combs.
That's a unique thing to borrow, you'd think.
Isn't that
Did they borrow food, I wonder?
just anything they needed, they'd go borrow it, but I'm sure they never paid it back. And also the gypsies traveled, and maybe they were walking a lot of the times. Of course, now you get on a plane and you get there in a very short time. And I also remember how people used to build the ice houses, and they'd fill them
tell us about
ice
that.
from the pond and in the wintertime and have it for use in the summer. They were built dug down in the ground, and then they would have a big top over them, you know. It was the way they built the ice houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had all the ice they wanted to use for the summer.
Wonder what to put in there to pack the ice in to keep it from melting.
They would pack it under straw and things like that to keep the air from it, and of course, then that would keep it cold.
Yeah, so then they had a good supply of ice through the summer.
That's right. So different than what it is nowadays.
Yes.
Oh, let me tell you something funny during our wedding ceremony. When the preachers asked me, would I take this husband to be my lawful and wedded husband, I said, I do. And when he asked my husband about the wife, he said, yes, sir. And also when he started out, he started to go back the way he came in.
He must have been just a wee bit excited on his wedding
He certainly
day.
must have.